Hey friends, this is amazing. In today's video, we're gonna dive into Flowwise. Flowwise is a no-code, really a no-code platform which we can host locally and run it in our browser and also embed it in our websites and create chatbots simply by dragging and dropping actually the large language models into Flowwise. So it's really a drag and drop interface tool which doesn't require any coding, and I'm gonna show you how it works. First and foremost, it is open source here, so you can download it. You can go to their GitHub webpage here and then download it. Simply copy, in this case clone, the repo, and then you're good to go. And then you have two options to run it. In this case, if I scroll down, the first one is using Node. In this case, you would have to install Node in your system. The second one, which I preferred actually, was using Docker. But also for Docker, there you can see either run it via Docker Compose or build the image yourself locally and then run it. And the steps to do this are really quite simple because they're really explained. So if you have never worked with Node before, for instance, no worries, because you simply install Node, simply download Node.js package. There's also the link to Node that you can download, go to the website, download it for free, and then you can simply run these two lines in your command line and you're good to go. Secondly, if you want to use Docker, you of course need to install Docker, and this depends whether you have Windows or Linux and so on. But even for Windows, which my system is now, it's quite easy actually to install Docker. And if you do this, then you can run it simply by building first the container and then run the container like this, and then you can open it in your browser. So if I go to my browser and simply type in localhost, and then simply the port 3000, which is specified here, then I can open it. And you can see that this is what the interface looks like. So really quite neat, looks good to me. And we can get immediately started creating our first flow. That's why it's called Flowwise, because it's really a flow, and you'll see this in a minute. So after running this locally, what we can do now is simply take a look at the interface itself. So we can see that first, of course, we can switch here whether we want to have in dark mode or there's also a light mode simply by clicking here. I prefer the dark mode, but I mean, it's up to you what you want. And then you can check out these things in here. And I also got started a few moments actually ago with Flowwise. So there's much to explore. And if you want to see more, just let me know in the comments. But for now, let's actually start very simple and create our first flow in here. And for that, we can either go to Marketplace and choose one of the templates which are available there, or we can simply go to chat flows and create our own flow, which I've already done here. This is my first flow, right? And it supports by default a LangChain framework and also Llama Index. Llama Index is currently in beta, but for me, I'm gonna use LangChain because I'm used to use LangChain, but I just want to mention this as well. So to get started, what we simply need to do is go to Chatflow and then click on Add New. So if you go there, and then you can see you got a new interface here where we can create actually our flow. And to create the flow, we just need to click on the plus symbol here. And then there are all the options we have. And you can see here, this is LangChain, and there you can also switch to Llama Index, and then you have options from Llama Index if you want to use this. But for now, let me go with LangChain in here. And then what we need actually, well, let's start with the simple thing, which is actually a normal large language chain. So if we take a closer look at what we have here for the chains, for instance, then we can go down there and we can see all the options in here. So all this can be done in Python as well, right? You can program this, you can use LangChain and import all the modules and create your Python script. But instead of that, you could also do it here without any code directly in this really nice looking GUI. So for that, let's actually go with the LLM chain and simply drag and drop. That's why it's called Flowwise. Just you drag it here on the canvas like that. And here you get our LLM chain. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay. So we can drag this around, we can also delete it if we want, and we could also get more information, and also we can hover over this one here. You can also here duplicate if you want. So for that, you can see that these are the inputs we have, so these 4 in here, but the compulsory ones, so the ones we need to actually use as input here, which are required, are these with the red stars, of course. The other ones, like the output parser, the input moderation, these are optional. For the chain, let's give this a name. So my first one had Dan chain, but in this case, let me just call it, in this case, simply first chain, okay, like that. So that's the name of the chain, and of course, later on, you can always change it if you want. And for the output in here, we stick to the LLM chain. There's also an option to use the output prediction. This makes sense if you concatenate chains. So if you have, for instance, one chain and the output of this chain should go into the next chain, then you would go with output prediction. But if you just want to output from this chain, you go with LLM chain. So we have this. we don't need to configure this. And now we need actually our inputs, which is the model itself and the prompt. Now for that, we click on the plus symbol here again and then check out what we have. So let's go out of the change here. And actually for the model, I want to have a chat model so they get better have a better performance. So what I've seen so far. So I go with chat and then you can take a look at what's available. And you can use any model which is seen here. So you can use, for instance, if you have an AWS account and you use Bedrock, you can this one. If you have Azure, you can chat OpenAI from the Azure account. And there are also other ones like Anthropic here, for instance, if you want to go with the Claude models and so on and so on. So also Google models here are available in this case. But for me, there's also open source, by the way. So if you want to go Hugging Face, you can explore, let's say, Hugging Face and so on and so on. Mistral, Chat OpenLlama and so on. I will go with the default one, which is in this case OpenAI's Chat OpenAI. So I drag this inside, drag and drop, and then we need to configure this the same way as we've done in here. So in this case, we have not configured much but the chain name. But here we need to specify credentials. So if you have not set them up, you can click on this drop down here and then choose new, create new. And all you do is you give it a name and then you post your, or you paste your API key. So for OpenAI website. If you have no key, of course, as I said, it would be the same one for all the other models. And if you go with the open source model, Hugging Face, probably then you would use your Hugging Face API key, and you can get this for free, for instance, from their website if you just log in there. So for that, I already created a key, so I'm using my key here, and that's it. And then, of course, we can specify the model. In this case, there are various options in here. So let me click on here, and you can see all these ones, also the GPT-4 versions. In this case, I'm going with the 1106 GPT 3.5 turbo model. That should be good. And then for the temperature here, you can specify what kind of temperature we want. So let me drag this up and say temperature 0.1. Okay, so I lower it, and that's fine for now. If you want to go with additional parameters, you can click on here, and there are also options like what is the maximum of tokens you want to expect, probability, and so on. So if you are not familiar with these, you can skip this totally. But if you want to configure this, and you have, well, here are the options to do this. So let me just go out, click up there, and that's actually it. And then, why is it called Flowwise again? Because we can go now here and drag our flow here, drag and drop it in here, like that. And that's it. And now, of course, you can delete this if you want. But for now, the second one is a prompt. Now for the prompt, I go again on the plus symbol here, and then I can search for prompt. In this case, I'm going with the chat prompt. So let me just search for prompt in here. Prompt, that. And then you can see that various prompt options. There's a chat prompt template, the normal prompt template, and so on. And in this case, I'm going with the chat prompt template. So let me drag this down here. And of course, let me drag this up, zoom out, zoom in. So you can see that you can, there's quite a large canvas. You can really create complex workflows in here. But for now, we stick to these three. Let me zoom out in here again. So we got our template. And for this one here, we will go with a system message and a human message. And then we also have the option to format the prompt template. So that just means for the system message, I say, you are an anime expert who recommends animes similar to the one the user requests, okay? Something like that. Of course, you can write any kind of system message you want, but this is how I prime the model up front, and then here is the human text. Now for the text itself, we can now ask it a question and say, for instance, in this case, give me animes similar to, and now, of course, we can, of course, hard code it, like we can say anime similar to XYZ, but probably most often, of course, we want to have this dynamic. Meaning, with the chat later on, of course, we would actually get, or want to get animes based on what we ask in the chat, not what we hard code in here. And this is why we need to specify here variables. So in this case, you do it with curly brackets and you say, this is the title, for instance, like the anime title, right? This is what we enter in here. And now we have the option to format this. So this just means we have now a placeholder in here instead of a hard-coded value. And now if I go to format prompt values in here, you see that now the placeholder here can be filled. And we can do this by simply clicking here on this icon, this pencil, and now specify what kind of value we want. And if you click inside the box, you can see that either, in this case, something from chat history or the question itself. And this is what we want, because the question, this is what actually the user, so the end user later on, of course, asks in the chat. And this question, of course, should be the input. So I click on question here and click out like this. And now we have a dynamic. So instead of having here a hard-coded value as I said, we have now a placeholder, and this placeholder will be filled based on what someone asks in the conversation. And now the final thing, of course, is let me zoom out again, so like that, and then drag this here flow-wise, so the flow flows up here into the prompt, like this. Okay, so we got this as well, and now we are good to go. So we have our, in this case, the large language model, we have a prompt, and we have our chain. And now, in order to run this, of course, we first need to save it. So click on the save disk up there, save chat flow, and then say, in this case, it's my second flow. So I call this second flow, but of course, feel free to name this your first flow or whatever you want, anime flow or whatever kind of question you ask. So now click on save. Save, okay, well, we have saved. And as soon as we have saved it, we can actually try it out. That just means that if we want to see this now real as a chat, you can simply click on this icon here, so chat with the model. So if I click on chat like this, you can see that now this is the chat window, and here's the bot, and of course now we can ask here our question. So for instance, give me 3 animes similar to, in this case, I don't know, One Piece, okay? Piece, like this. And let's run this. Click on just enter on your keyboard, and you can see that now it gives us the responses. So you enjoy One Piece, and there are 3 animes. Fairy Tail, oh, that is a good one, by the way, that Hunter x Hunter and Naruto. So if these are close actually to One Piece, this is something, I mean, you have to decide for yourself, but you can see that this clearly works exactly as we expected. So the model now knows, okay, I got the question here, the question is about animes, and the anime which I should, well, target and find similar ones is exactly the one which the user types in here in this question box here. So during the conversation, and not a hard-coded value, which could also be defined if you just hard-coded here in the chat prompt template. But as you've seen, we just use in this case a placeholder which is filled when we ask a question in the chat. So that's actually flow-wise in a nutshell how it works. So you can see that there is no coding involved. You just set it up, you run it, and then you just open it in your local browser, and then you just drag and drop all the things you want. And you configure the nodes or your flow, and then you can create any kind of complex flow you want. And of course, later on, you can chat with it. Now, of course, we can continue chatting here. We can also delete the chat if we want. We can just close this chat if we want. And the best thing really is that we can also embed this and also use it as our endpoint. So what I mean by that is, for instance, in here, you can see that I can use it as an API endpoint. So I can go in here, and there you can see that what kind of options you have. So for instance, in here, we can embed this. So you see, if you want to embed it in an HTML page, you have this code in here. There are also other options in here, pop-up React or full-page React. You can use it via JavaScript, curl, Python, and so on. All these options in here. You can specify authorization if you want. And for me, I just keep it simple, and because when I program, I'm using Python, so I will go with Python. But of course, if you use JavaScript or you will have your own website and you want to embed this, you can also try this out. But for now, let me just go with Python. And you see that this is what we need. So there is an API. This is the URL. We got the request package. We sent our payload in here. In this case, this is hey, how are you? But in this case, all I need is actually this URL in here. So this one here. So let me just copy this because I already prepared the other things. So if I go inside my Visual Studio Code, so let me just drag this down. And if I go in here, you can see that's it. So, and already actually pasted exactly here this. I tested it before, but now I have a different URL. Well, this was my first flow, but exactly the code is exactly the same. So if you have never, well, coded in Python before, really all you need to do is just copy this here and just change then the question itself to whatever kind of question or topic you have decided. And that's it. And if you go inside Visual Studio Code, and if I just change the endpoint now, like this in here, Control V to paste it. And of course, I don't need twice this and twice this. So we got this one, we get our API. Let me just save it for now. And we return the response as JSON. And because the JSON itself is, this is a dictionary, and the dictionary, the value is stored in text, I just said response text instead of response as they proposed. In this case, they didn't propose anything, but I just wanted to have the text itself. So I printed here so we can see it in the command line. And now if we try this out again, in this case, Python, and then it's API test.py for me, like this. And if I run this, press enter, I just wait a little bit, and then I get my response in here. So just a second, and here it is. Okay, you can see here it's Fairy Tail, it's Hunter x Hunter, and it's Naruto, and in this case also Bleach and Dragon Ball Z. So by the way, Bleach also an amazing anime. I recommend it, but that's just my personal opinion here. But okay, so that's it actually for flow-wise. You can see that it's simply dragging and dropping things, and even if you want to use it later on in your website, or if you want to host it as an API somewhere, and you can then just call the API via Python, via JavaScript, whatever you want, and you see that this works also. Of course, if you want to implement this later on in your personal website or in your project and so on, then of course you need to host it somewhere, right? So if you host it only locally, that probably would be an issue. But if you have maybe then some kind of provider where you host this, when you run this actually, then of course you can use it also and use it on your website on the internet. And think of this, because now then you can simply embed a chatbot in your website. If you have no clue how to do this, and you need a developer normally for that, you can do it via Flowise simply by this, and then embed the HTML code as you've seen. If you just click on here inside your website, and you have a complete working bot, which exactly does what you specified in here. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If so, please give this video a like, and also please subscribe to the channel because it encourages me to make more videos. And also click on the bell icon because then you get notified if I upload new videos. So if you want to see more on this or something else, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.